Hi everybody, I'm Stephanie Nelson from Razzle, Dazzle, Rabbitry Yarns LLC. Today's video is to show you how to use a fine-tooth drum carder to make what we call the everything yarn bat. So we're going to start out showing you the materials that you're going to need. We have just very small pieces of purple, light blue, hot pink, of kind of orangish cream color, and black roving. They're merino roving. We have two different kinds of silk that we will include, and it's just a little section of each of the silks. So if you put them next to each other, you're going to notice that one is a little bit darker than the other. So it's probably just about 1.5 feet of silk. And mixed in with everything, we have 4 different kinds of angelina. We have a purple, a brownish copper, a lighter blue purple, and we have our white, and then there's also copper. We have, of course, angora, 100% German angora, and a variety of, this is hand-dyed wool. So the wool was dyed using retting method, and it is from a very special talented artist who is working on all sorts of different colors to dye. So what do we start out with? To make this, as usual, I'm going to top load. I'm going to take my pink first and put it on the right hand section of the drum carder, and I'll put some blue kind of off to the side, the left hand side. Then I'm going to put that slightly, there's a kind of an orange tint to the tan. I'll throw the purple right in between everything. And this is a very thin layer. Next, we are going to take the lighter of the 2 silks. We're going to rip it into 3 sections. We're just going to take one of the sections and very randomly top load across. So the amounts of each of these will vary. This is something that we're using just a complete variety of colors and a complete variety of different fibers. And everything, we call it the everything yarn because literally it's whatever is laying around. Everything that you have kind of mixed up, colors, textures, just a little bit of angelina, a little bit of glitz, just all sorts of different things. And for this bat, if we really wanted to add even more, we could take different threads and just cut them up about 4-inch sections and literally cut it and keep laying it on top of the drum carder, and that would give us even more texture. So it just depends on how much of everything. So we didn't pick any of our wool, we just hand picked it, and we're going to completely randomly load it. So this is a fine-tooth drum carder. It's going to take apart these locks. You're really not going to be left with many sections. You're not really going to be able to see the actual lock structure. You're not going to be able to see the curls. You're not going to be able to see any of the sections that have crimp. And that's okay. That's just not this sort of yarn. Just because you have a wensleydale or a teeswater fiber, it doesn't mean you always have to lock spin it. Doesn't mean you always have to maintain the structure of the lock. So that's something that a lot of people may begin spinning with them, and they will tail spin them, or they'll spin an art yarn from them, and they don't believe that you can actually spin a traditional yarn from these fibers. Well, you certainly can. It simply just takes the fibers, the lock structure, and rips it all apart. which is what I'm doing right now. I'm literally just picking. You can use a triple picker. You can, if you have, there's all sorts of pickers that are out there to pick your wool, your locks apart. I randomly just place it wherever top loading on the bat. I'm gonna grab a little bit of angora. We're just gonna load that wherever we want. It does not matter. So if you really wanted to, all these fibers, this is a whole bunch of fibers that came off the liquor from the last 2 or 3 bats that we made. So if I really wanted to, I could do this. I'm just gonna load a layer of this back on. This will add a lot of sparkle. Second cuts are coming off on our liquor. Those are the sections that you're seeing. We'll put a bit of black on there. And we just keep going. We end up with somewhere on this bat, we'll have about 2 to 2.5 ounces in this bat. We're not going to do much more than that, just because when we're spinning this, we're going to make somewhere between a 6 to a 7.5 ounce skein of yarn with this. And that's just what we're going for. So we're going to take a little bit of angelina, or what we call glitz, doesn't matter which colors. We're just going to randomly place it on there. Time for a bit of our silk. Top load. When I first started top loading on the drum carder, I learned that if you hold your fibers, if you hold them too tight, what happens is it starts creating the neps with a fine-tooth drum carder. So you really want to just let them go. That you see that this bat is smooth, there's no neps. And you'll notice a nep is when it like starts catching and making these weird, like really noticeable sections on your bat. When you take the bat off, they're not going to be as noticeable. However, when you spin them, and the more you card something, it's the more likely that you can get neps on a fine fiber. When you spin them, they actually turn into texture. So if you want this bat to actually be super textured, you can spin, you can send it through the drum carder. You can hold some tension onto the items when you're top loading, and you'll start getting those neps if you just want more texture, if that's what you're going for. We'll add some more angora, lighten it up. When it starts getting too dark, I add some white. When it starts getting too light, I add some more colors. So literally just take whatever you have laying around. You can put it all together. I like this. This is like cotton candy, these colors. Not that color, but these, where you have just that magenta and then you have the teal. There's a little bit of purple that mixes in. Very nicely dyed. So we're gonna load it right on the white. My drum carder is not clamped down. My drum carder is very rarely clamped down. I never bought it with the clamp. I never really used it with the clamp, and that's just how we do it. Ooh, look at it. There's some more of this. A little bit of blue. Very nice colors. We're gonna load it over here. We didn't even pick this. Some of them we pick, some of them we don't pick. A little bit of green. We're gonna load that right on top. And some more silk right on top of that green. Moving over to the right. I think I might have called this the left-hand side of the drum carder before. I don't know what I called it. It's the right hand side. This is the right hand side. That's the left hand side when I'm looking at it. I turn it with my right hand. I do know my left and right. Maybe it doesn't seem that way. Okay, so glitter, Angelina. We want some sparkle. I want to take this yarn and I'm either going to triple ply it, or I have 2 bobbins spun up right now. I might spin a 3rd bobbin because I'll have a total of 4 of these. 4 of these bats. I'm not quite sure exactly what I'll do. Now that I'm thinking about it, now I told you I had a plan, and then it becomes clear all of a sudden when I'm doing it, I may change my plan. That's just the way I do things for the most part. I can have plans, but if I'm doing something and it starts turning out in a different particular way, if it's not being done for somebody else, if it's not like a commissioned work, then I'll just do whatever. So I didn't like the way that piece was laying on there, and I just picked it back up because it wasn't truly getting carded the way I wanted it to. Add some more angora. And another section of the silk. So the silk was actually a gift from a good friend of mine. She gave me 3 different kinds of silks, and at first I thought, ooh, I'm gonna dye them up. I'm gonna take a look at how they are. And then after I received all of this dyed fiber, I decided to just leave this silk natural how it is, like the natural color it is. I'm not gonna dye it, and I'm gonna use it as a bit of neutral in this yarn, which I really like. So a little bit more glitter, a little bit more angelina. Different angelinas will top load differently onto your drum carder. So this is the Brother Fine Tooth Drum Carder, and the angelinas that I'm using, none of them are very thick angelinas. They're very thin. There's some of the different colors, some of the different types, you'll all of a sudden find that some are thicker than others and they will load differently, and some are longer than others, and some are slipperier than others, and the different variety of fibers that you work with, you'll learn how the different fibers behave when you're doing it. So we just keep going. Just keep making it. At this point, you've noticed that we have not used anything to push this down. Whatever catches on our liquor, we just let it catch. Sometimes there's pieces that are smaller, like this one, depending on if I didn't pick it apart, it might not card fully, might not card out very well. So some that's okay, some I don't want that. However the spirit moves you, just do that with this bat. That's part of how I learn or create. Oh gosh, I just do whatever. Now I have to check the camera because I bumped the camera. There we go. We are getting towards the end. This is the last of the angora that we're putting on. We'll cover up. There's a lot of black on that section. A lot of darker stuff. We'll cover that up. Here's the last of our angelina that's going on there. Last of our glitz. Next, we have right on top of the white, and then drag it across. We're going to add the last of the black. For our dyed locks, I'm going to pull this little section apart. Load it up. Add it on. Take a little bit of purple directly on that, spread it around. There's not much purple left. This is the last of our purple locks. Ooh, I don't like the way that is. This section, this section, this section. Just take it off. If you don't like it, take it off. Try again. If you want it to spread apart, just hold it different. Just hold it in your left hand for a little bit longer. Let the actual teeth grab it. And then let it go. The last piece of our lighter colored silk is going on. Now the interesting thing about drum carding this silk roving is it's going to feel very slippery. So when you're spinning this yarn, all of a sudden you're going to get to a piece of silk like this little section right here. So it's not carded, it's not, the fibers, the individual silk fibers are not spread out very well. When you get to that section when you're spinning, you're going to feel it. And this is, the silk will kind of stick together when you're spinning it. And that's something that it can create a thick, dense piece if you're not aware. If you're not aware that that happens and you're just kind of spinning and not really paying attention to what you're doing, just kind of letting it go. And if you want a thick and thin yarn, that'll do it. It'll make a dense yarn. I don't want this yarn to be thick and thin. Maybe I do, actually. Maybe with this last one, maybe that's what I'm gonna do. I don't really know. I do not know. All right, let's use the last of what was on the liquor. It's got a lot of the angelina, a lot of the glitz in it. See how it comes off. So when you're looking at this, after you've been spinning for a while and making things for a while, last piece of the dark silk, you may notice, you may start thinking, ooh, is that gonna heather? So a heathered look in yarn is when there's a lot of different colors and they blend together. So the more you drum card, if I were to send this to the drum carder again, the colors are gonna blend more. If I were to take it off, send it again, if I were to send it a total of 3 times, these colors are gonna start, they're gonna start coming together to the point where it's like mud. And then there's no real distinguishing between the colors. So I used this screwdriver, which is pretty random, and I take off my Batt. I have no idea how much this Batt actually weighs. So this is the Batt, the everything Batt. This is what's left over on the liquor. There's not much left on the actual drum. I have like a crazy little comb that I just use and take off what is left. If I want to, I can spin this up. I can spin whatever I take off the liquor and add it to my Batt, or I can just keep that and add it to my collection of all the other stuff I take off the liquor. I have a bag started, and then at some point I spin if when there's enough, I spin it into its own skein of yarn. And I usually just give that skein away because it's completely random. So there you go. That is the Everything Batt. We posted a video earlier today. Today is January 11th, 2019. Spinning one of the Everything Batts. This is our finished bat. Hope you enjoyed watching the video. Subscribe. The end.